so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight, o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets regular, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
How long are you going to talk?
5 minutes.
Okay, me too.
Do you know where it's at?
Yeah, probably.
Brian. Can you hear me, Brian?
Let's hear one loud round of applause for Bella once again.
Glad you're here. This is good.
Awesome, awesome. Well, we are super excited to have you all out here tonight. We're going to start with Mayor Trent Staggs, and we're going to go from there. Thank you.
Wow. All right. Bring some energy to Utah, baby. Go. Thank you. Thank you. Wow. Thank you. You know, I just have to say, I appreciate you. I just had a couple of young folks come up here and say, Trent, we're praying for you. And I have to say, that just really gave me some encouragement. My wife Alicia is here, my 14-year-old son Brennan, and thank you. You've probably seen, those that are delegates, all of these nasty, lying attack ads that they've been throwing at me. It's unbelievable. You know, and Mark Levin, he said when I was on the program, he said, Trent, you're not a foot soldier for McConnell. They're coming after you. They're coming after you. And I thought at the time, you know, okay, sure. But he was right. You know, and that's the reason for these attack ads, because I'm not a foot soldier for McConnell. And they know that I'm not going to vote. Thank you. They know that I'm not going to be a vote for their endless war, for their endless debt, and for all the nonsense that they keep doing. You know, we started this campaign by calling out the establishment. I said, enough is enough. My wife and I made the decision. We said, enough is enough. We've got to replace Mitt Romney. We have to do it. And so at a time, nobody else challenged him. We did. We stepped in, and we said, Massachusetts doesn't need a third senator. Utah deserves another constitutional conservative, someone like Mike Lee. So let's do this. So we stood up, we challenged Romney, we challenged McConnell. I've called him out time and time again. I said we need to go ahead and smash the firm. No more of this backroom Senate, House leadership going into a back room, cobbling together a 1,000-page piece of legislation and throw it on the desk of members of Congress. If that comes to me, I put in my contract with Utah, I will not vote for it. Yeah. I will not vote for an omnibus spending plan. Won't do it. We also have other great things in that contract with Utah, like, much like referees, we don't allow them to bet on the game. We're not going to allow members of Congress to go ahead and trade individual stocks. It's unbelievable to me how much these guys are making. And you're talking to somebody who took an energy company public. I just thought, wow, millions and millions of dollars that some of these folks are able to make. So that shouldn't be happening. And obviously, we need to be able to we have got to be able to put in a ban on retiring members of Congress and high-ranking government officials from becoming lobbyists and working for a contractor. These things would really clean up our situation today. But we have to, those of you that are delegates, those of you that are voters, there's so many people in this race now. I was the only one May to about October. Now we've got a lot of people jumped in. And what we've said is, with all due respect to everybody else in this race, if you haven't demonstrated the willingness to take on the establishment in Utah, how are you going to do it in D.C.? And that to me is the number one characteristic of someone we should be looking for. Because everybody's going to speak and say that they're conservative, they're going to profess to be conservative. That's great, but have you walked the walk and not just talk the talk? And I've done it. Challenging Romney, challenging McConnell, supporting President Trump. When others held back last summer and said, I don't know, they would use the line, I'm going to support the nominee. I said, forget it. Donald Trump is the guy. He's demonstrated he's able to fight the establishment, and I want to go back there with them and clean up. We need that. And I spoke about this in my CPAC speech. I was the only one from Utah invited to speak at CPAC, elected official, and only one of two Senate candidates, me and Carrie Lake, said, we need leaders. Don't you think we need leaders that care about everyday Americans, not just themselves? And Donald Trump, yes, we had tax cuts. We had less than $2 gallon gasoline. Oh, boy, love we were there again. Foreign policy, Supreme Court nominations. But a personal example was Josh Holt is a Riverton resident, one of my own. You guys know the story of Josh Holt. Thrown in a Venezuelan prison by this socialistic government. Obama was the president at the time. He and Biden did nothing to bring him home. It wasn't until Donald J. Trump got into office and he said, you know what, we're going to fight for everyday Americans. And he brought him home. So that's why I support President Trump. And I have pledged to join the equivalent of the Freedom Caucus in the Senate. Right. Because therein lies part of the problem. Senator Tommy Tuberville, who came out here and endorsed my candidacy, he said, look, the problem is this. We've got to get the majority back in the Senate, but even now we only have 18 of the 49 Republicans that are true America First and constitutional conservatives. We've got guys like Senator Tuberville, like Mike Lee, like Rand Paul, like Rick Scott, Ron Johnson, J.D. Vance, Ted Cruz. All these great senators, they need more help. And he said, that's why I'm here. Because we need about 8 more. Trent Staggs, I'm supporting him. I've vetted all the candidates. He's the guy who supports Trump. He's going to come in and join our caucus. And then I'm supporting Carrie Lake in Arizona, Bernie Moreno in Ohio.
Another?
And
why?
And that's what I'm so excited about. We have the opportunity to go ahead and gain control, the majority in our own Republican caucus that is going to be able to finally advance an America First constitutional conservative agenda. I'm going to do that.
How much is in this one?
So we're excited to do it, but I need your help. We've got to get on the ballot here come Saturday at the state convention, and we will keep this going. We will keep it going. And I'm in it to fight. I am so sick and tired of this. We cannot wait. We have very little runway left. I understand what time it is, and we need people. We need bold, courageous patriots to stand up at this time, like all of you here. Thank you. Well, hey, I want to be able to introduce Charlie. He is, look, just incredible what his organization has been able to do. It truly is. And one of the most impressive things to me, I mean, I wish that I had an organization like that I could have affiliated with while I was going to college. And we've seen that 18 to 34-year-old cohort was trending progressive. I mean, think back to 2008, first term of President Obama, and it was just going the wrong way. And then you get a great organization like Turning Point that comes around and offers a conservative alternative. And we now today, I was with Charlie not too long ago, and they talked about this. That 18 to 34-year-old cohort, especially with males, it is now the most conservative it's been in 50 years. 50 years. So it's remarkable. I loved it. I had the opportunity to go down last July and be interviewed, be on his podcast, on his show. And he said, look, I want to endorse you. You've got the ability, you've got the courage, you've stood up to Mitt Romney. You're willing to run against this guy, and you have the strength to go ahead and take on the cabal. That was the word he used, cabal. But he said, I don't want to do it here. I want you to come out to the Turning Point Action Summit in West Palm Beach, Florida. We went out there. What an incredible experience to be on stage with about 7,000 people or so. I spoke, then Vivek Ramaswamy, then we had President Trump. It was electrifying. And that's what Charlie does. Wherever he goes, he brings this energy and this charisma. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, Charlie Kirk.
Want to use that mic?
You can, this one's hot.
Okay. Jeez. Thank you, everybody. Please take a seat. Thank you. Great to see you guys. I'm going to talk for a couple minutes. Well, there's two sexes, no genders, and infinite personalities. But thank you for the question. I appreciate that. So, I'm so honored to be here. I didn't have it on my schedule like a couple weeks ago to be in Utah, but a couple things came together. We had an event today at University of Utah, which was mostly peaceful. It was great, and all kidding aside, the university treated us super well. It's a little liberal there if you're not totally cued into that. But I'll be honest, like thousands of students came by our table on campus, asked really good questions. There are more conservatives, even at the University of Utah, than you would ever believe. I'm telling you, there's an awakening happening in this country. And so I was texting with Tyler. He said, hey, Trent wants to have you come out to Utah. I said, I'm going to Utah. So this kind of all came together. And here's the honest story about how we came to endorse Trent Staggs. And it was as simple as this. Tyler calls me, who runs Turning Point Action. And those of you that watch the show, you know Tyler. He does a great job. And he says, hey, there's a guy that wants to primary Mitt Romney. And I said, that's amazing. I want to endorse him. I have one question. Is he Mormon? And he said, yes. I said, do it. Absolutely. I said, because look, if you're not Mormon and you're going to go after Mitt Romney in Utah, that's not really wise. And then he said, he's a mayor. And I said, that's even better, because honestly, I think being a mayor best equips you for any sort of form of government, because you actually are accountable to the voters. You can't just like pass the buck. And being a mayor is actually one of the hardest jobs in government in the country. And so I just rose in respect there. And then we interviewed him on our show, and he was talking the right game, and he was saying the right things. And Trent all of a sudden started talking about the war machine. I said, this guy's the real deal. And he came to our event, crushed it, did amazing. And so I want to kind of connect what happened this last week with why we need Trent to win. Because this last week has been super demoralizing. Like, there's just no spin, right? And I'm not here to kind of like be overly negative, but I need to tell you that there's hope, and the hope is in getting Trent Staggs to first do very well at convention, and then be your nominee, and then your senator. Look, many of us want to believe we have a representative form of government. And in some ways we do. In some ways we do. We're able to have elections, hopefully get Trent to the Senate. We have Mike Lee in the Senate, who's doing a great job, by the way. Mike Lee's fighting for you guys every day. He's doing a great job. And what happened this last week is not even close to a representative form of government. It's not, first of all, we're not a democracy. We're a republic, not a democracy. It drives me crazy when people call us a democracy. But when some people say democracy, they really mean representative government. I could buy into that, right? We do have a representative form of government. And the core essence of a representative form of government is that you do not repeatedly do unpopular things that the people don't want and then celebrate it in their face and basically taunt them and be like, what are you going to do about it? Yeah, that's the Utah legislature. That's right. By the way, can you get rid of your governor? What is wrong with this guy, by the way? And this guy, I'm not here about that. If I have to hear him talk about pronouns one more time, you, the people of Utah, deserve a much better leader than that guy. Seriously. Anyway, not why I'm here. I had to get that off my chest. Sorry, Trent. Okay, anyway, so we're here for Trent. Let's remember that. So I had to get that off my chest. But so we want to believe we have a representative form of government. And so a sequence of super important bills were coming due. Now, mind you, this is after that Congress did nothing to secure the border. They did nothing to cut spending. We are adding $1 trillion to our debt every 100 days. And there were a series of votes that they scheduled that they knew were deeply unpopular with you, not just Republicans, conservatives, but the American people, like average Americans, and they had them scheduled one back to the other. Now, first of which was this FISA vote, which, without getting too deep into it, we have basically given the Department of Justice and the FBI the ability to spy on all of your private communications with no oversight whatsoever. I think it's reprehensible. I think it's wrong. We had an opportunity to fix that. And we had an opportunity to say, hey, you have to get a warrant before you're going to spy on an American. Like, I don't know, read the Fourth Amendment of the Constitution, like that pesky little document that should be the law of the land. And in typical DC bipartisan fashion, and that's important, they, with like the utmost ferocity, just jammed through a FISA bill that none of you would want. That if you walk the streets, even liberal Democrats be like, yeah, you should probably get a warrant before you spy on people. Like 278,000 times the FBI violated the FISA statute last year. Not a single one of them fired. Not a single one of them lose their pension. And they spied on you 278,000 times. Not to mention, they spied on Donald Trump via this statute with the Russiagate stuff. And Mike Johnson, who I've been very critical of in recent days, comes down and says, no, the Fourth Amendment doesn't matter, and was the tie-breaking vote nullifying it. So that was like the opening salvo, right? And then we get into this charade where the House, they have to go do stuff with Democrats, and the Senate looks like they're about to pass it. They will. Where we're a country that is $35 trillion in debt. It's probably even more than that because our accounting practices are so fraudulent. Our border is completely wide open. We have 110,000 people dying of drug overdoses every single year. Like, we have really big problems in this country. Our economy is not what it should be. And the top priority of your leaders in Washington, D.C. are to force feed you an unpopular foreign aid bill totaling $100 billion on top of over $250 billion of foreign aid to go fund a proxy war of a no-win conflict in eastern Ukraine, a country of which has no bearing on you or your children's future or your prosperity, because they say it's our democracy is under attack by Vladimir Putin. And so it passes the House, the Senate's going to pass it, and first of all, I could get into the Ukraine-Russian thing. Like, I don't think we should send another nickel to this Ukrainian war effort, period. And the fact that we have 10 to 15,000 people a day coming across the southern border, and then I have to watch a bunch of members of the House fly Ukrainian flags? They are taunting you. I just want to make sure this is clear. That's a good word for it. But without getting into that word yet, just think about, they don't feel as if you matter. Like, they're like, what are you going to do about it? Primary me? I'll just bury that opponent in cash from the big corporations. Right? You guys have experienced that. Like, what are you going to do? Write an op-ed? I'm in charge, you're not. This is not a republic. That's an oligarchy. That is not the founder's vision of the country. And again, I don't care what your politics are on the issue. You might love Ukraine, that's kind of weird, but like whatever, you might think it's like the most important thing ever. That's not the point. You should not repeatedly do unpopular things and then celebrate the unpopular act in front of the citizen. In fact, just from a 35,000-foot view, that's how you get revolutions. Like without, do they have any sort of care for the country itself? And you might say it's what they want, but like they really want mass destabilization? I don't think they've thought that through. Maybe they have. I mean, you might be right. I'm agnostic on that question. But I think what's important to understand and realize is that as they taunt you and as they kind of like dance in front of you with their Ukrainian flags, while all of your immediate concerns are ignored, they then will then go on cable talk shows and say, if you only knew what I knew, then you would vote this way. Now, this is why I love my job. I'll be honest, I have way too much fun doing what I'm doing. Because not only do I run Turning Point, I have a 3-hour show every day. Who watches the show, by the way? Anybody? Thank you, guys. Really great. Thank you. No, I'm blown away. We do these things. I'm like, is anybody watching? All of a sudden, I come to an event, everyone cheers. They do talk to me. So I get these people on the phone, like, okay, tell me what exactly. I was talking to one of them the other day, one of these representatives, who I will name eventually, but he said to keep it quiet because, whatever. And I was like, what exactly made you vote against warrant protections for Americans? He said, oh, well, the intel chiefs came in. I said, hold on a second. You now trust the intel agencies after everything that they've done? They lied about the origins of COVID. They've lied about the Wuhan Institute of Virology. They've lied about like masks with kids in schools. They lied about all this stuff. And now we're supposed to believe that the intel agencies are telling us the truth because they can't go get a flippin' warrant from a judge before they read my text message? Like, screw you, representative man. Like, what is this all about? And so, the representative form of government that we cherish can still exist. And the only way it does is an overwhelming response, especially here in this primary. Because understand, I get all these guys' names confused. Walton, Wilson, Curtis, I can't get them all. I get them all mixed up. Whatever. Only one that matters is Trent Staggs. That's the only one that matters, okay? That's the only one that matters. I hope you understand the message that this would send to the Ukrainian flag-flying anti-American forces of D.C. to have this man be a senator from the state of Utah. What that would do, because what they want is a transactional, warmongering, we're not going to ask questions, rubber stamp. Charlie, how do you know Trent is going to do it? Because anyone that has the spine to primary a sitting senator named Willard Mitt Romney in the state of Utah, that's someone that will stand up in Washington, D.C. And everyone else will talk a good game. But I have the receipts. He was first out of the gate. When everyone else was afraid the Romney machine's going to come after you, they're going to blanket you with your money, they're going to do a blackmail file. You guys know how that works. He was like, I don't care, country matters more. Out of the gate. That's someone that proves that he has the courage and the willingness to fight for you in D.C. And so, let me just close with this, is that I think that we are at an existential crisis. These maniacs on TV. Climate change is an existential problem. You know what's a bigger crisis is what happened last week to our country and our civilization. And it's not just the policy of it, it's the attitude. It's that we don't care what our voters or our citizens think. And so what they're doing is they might be trying to have destabilization. Well, let's not give them destabilization. Instead, let's give them the thing that they don't want, which is a peaceful response and a referendum on their arrogance by sending the person that they hate the most into the Senate chamber to go fight against all of this stuff. And so, let's just talk plain truth. This weekend is the convention. Who's a delegate here? Raise your hand. We need you guys to actively get other delegates on board for Trent. The talking point should be simple. He had the courage to go after Mitt early. The national voices of the conservative movement are consolidating behind Trent. And we need a fighter after this charade in D.C. more than ever, and business as usual will not cut it. So we need delegates to talk to delegates. We need you guys there active and early and supportive and loud. This convention is going to be super important because then we of course, get into the actual primary. This whole system is so interesting to me. I'm being very nice. It's very confusing. I spent like an hour trying to understand it. You pay for play to get on the ballot, the top 2 vote getters. Anyway, Trent's got to win at convention. Let's just be very honest. Trent has to win a convention. Let's just call it. So I want to get to some questions, but this country can be saved. The one thing I will reject is doomerism. It's over. Our best days are behind us. I will totally acknowledge it is dark. It is super grim. But look around. There are so many patriots here that share your value system. Without all of the frizzles and the frazzles and the nonsense, I know this on campus. When I'm able to actually talk to someone who thinks they're on the left, and I'm able to de-emphasize the propaganda and ask very crisp questions, all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, I do think that the government should represent the voters. Like, I think a border is important. Now, there are radicals, of course, but our value system is a mainstream one in this country. That we believe that children should be off limits from groomers. That we believe that the government is for and by the people. That we want a strong country for our children to grow up in. That we believe that when you remove God as the center of your society, then you get moral chaos. These are not radical positions. These are mainstream opinions. And I have no idea how this November will turn out with Trump. We can ask about that in question and answer. Here's what I do know, is that you should take their repeated insults towards you as motivation, as fuel. Remember how much they hate you and do something about it and send somebody they hate in return. Thanks so much, everybody.
All right, we're going to open it up for questions. Now, to comments. We want to have the preference to delegates. So you're going to line up right here by me. We're going to start a line here. Come up, ask your questions. We're going to keep your questions under 20 seconds. So that means we're not sharing personal stories, otherwise I'll hold mine. So come up here, ask your questions, and let's get started.
Who wants to be first? Yes, sir.
Hi, I don't know if you've heard of the PROS Act. Have you heard about the PROS Act yet?
Prozac or the Prozac?
You've probably heard about the bill in California that was passed that basically they tried to make all Uber drivers be employees rather than...
Oh, yeah.
They're trying to do it at the national level, and it failed. So what the Biden administration is doing instead is trying to implement it through executive order through the Department of Labor.
Shocker.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yep.
So what can we do about that, and what are your thoughts on it?
I mean, first of all, it should be illegal to do something that needs to be done legislatively, so I hope the courts strike it down. Second of all, that's the most Utah question ever, because that's the most detailed thing I've ever heard. It's like, I totally expect that. I love it. Like most questions are, Joe, the election's stolen! What do we do about it? First question out of Utah.
The Prozac.
Yeah, he goes, I love it. It's amazing. Super thoughtful, highbrow, high IQ. It's exactly what I expect. Trent, I'm sure you would, your thoughts.
Well, no, this is really important. We have a lot. I mean, the gig economy is here. It would actually destroy it. They want to be able to, the government's surprised, shocker, they want to be able to claw taxes from people that are working on a 1099 basis or contract, if I understand it correctly, right? Mm-hmm. So that is something that we need to ensure doesn't take place. And if there is an attempt through the Biden administration to do it through executive order, I mean, this is the problem. We've got so much executive overreach. There's far too much. I mean, from everything. We talked the Antiquities Act here. The last TikTok ban was far too excessive or gave too much to the executive branch. So we got to stand up. The legislature, Congress actually has to stand up and assert itself.
Amen. I agree with that.
Hi, as a state delegate, I have one question. I've been getting all the anti-stuff,
Yeah.
texts, emails, in the mail, everywhere. I have one question now. Everyone knew Donald Trump was running for election. It wasn't a secret to anybody. But
Well, yeah, sure. I mean, I was approached weeks and weeks before President Trump announced that he was going to run and asked if I would put my name to a exploratory committee for DeSantis. I said, well, you know, I like what he did in Florida. He did a great job. I did a lot of what he did as a mayor in standing up to COVID, and that's well documented as a mayor that I stood up. And so I thought, well, this is interesting. The 2 or 3 sentence statement just said that we need somebody with a proven track record like his, and he did a great job as a governor, entertain an exploratory committee. That was it. It wasn't positing him against Trump or anything. And to prove the point, as soon as that type of argument was made and President Trump made his announcement, I said, take my name off the list. It's really that simple. And I was the first elected official in the state of Utah to go ahead and endorse. I did it, last summer when it wasn't popular, when DeSantis was even ahead in some polls in the state of Utah. So that, to me, it's very, very important. I think President Trump has demonstrated his strength, his ability, and as I gave, my CPAC speech kind of summary earlier about what he did for one of my own residents, it became very, very personal. So I'm a huge fan and supporter of President Trump. It's quite the line.
Great.
Jason McCrail, state delegate, you and I have spoken at length.
That's right, Jason.
My question is similar. Just all of a sudden, there's a lot of mudslinging going.
Yeah.
And like I said, you and I have spoken at length about this, and I think it would just be important to address that in general, tell everybody what you told me specifically with regard to that DEI training that you forced.
Well, thank you. So, Charlie, you may not know, but I've had these DC dark money PACs.
Than I do, so.
DC dark money PACs that have been singling me out because they don't want me in office. Yeah. They know I ran against Romney, I challenged McConnell, and I support President Trump to be part of this Freedom Caucus in the Senate. So they don't want me anywhere near office. They think they can dupe delegates. You guys can't be duped, can you? All right. So they're trying to right now, and they're making up things, which is just, it actually makes me angry. They sent out one ad that showed a cop car burning, and they said that Trent Staggs blamed cops. There's nothing further from the truth. I've been endorsed by the Utah Fraternal Order of Police. My very first endorsement. We have never, Riverton City has never engaged in any DEI training or any hiring practices whatsoever. This is how fake news happens. My team, we're fending off 2 or 3 fake news stories every single week from opposing camps. And they'll reach out and say, oh, we found that your police chief commented on whether or not he had an anti-bias, a use of force, and a body-worn camera policy. And you must be woke then, because you have an anti-bias and a use of force policy. Well, hey, shouldn't we want every police department to have that to ensure that we're applying the law equally to everybody, irrespective of any immutable characteristics? I mean, give me a break. This isn't any training, it's a policy. It's part and parcel of any police agency in this valley, in this state, especially those that use Lexipol for their back-end legal compliance and for the creation of their policies and procedures. So that one, to me, is just by far the most ludicrous thing I've ever seen. But that's exactly what they do. They'll take whatever they can, twist it, write the headline. They write the headline before they write the story, and they just seek clickbait, and then that's something that they can use subsequently. It's so dishonest. It's patently dishonest, and quite frankly, this is why too few good people end up running for politics, because of all this crap. And I hate it.
This is Worth Escabel, I'm a state delegate, and not a Utah question. What's going on with Nebraska?
Oh, great question, yes. The fact that you guys know, I love Utah. Like, you guys are so onto it. Thank you. So let me explain it, and then I'll give you the update, because it's a great update, actually. Yeah, absolutely. So, so the way that we do our electoral college system is you have to get, there's 538 electoral votes in the country. Whoever gets 270 becomes president of the United States at the convening of the electoral college. If no candidate gets the 270 electoral votes, it goes to the House of the Representatives, and every state gets 1 vote. So even California and Wyoming get the same vote, and they figure it out. Okay, so we were preparing for our radio show, and we knew this beforehand. We super early in the morning, and we go to a website called 270towin.com. And on the website, you can run all the different scenarios, potentially, of how Trump or Biden can split up states and who could become president. So there's obvious ones, right? Like Utah's going to go for Trump, right? Unfortunately, California will go for Biden, so on and so forth, right? But then there's swing states, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin. So every 10 years, the census changes the math slightly. So, for example, I believe Utah gained population. So you guys gained a representative, if I'm not mistaken, right? Maybe, or at least stayed the same. Arizona gained population, gained a representative. Texas, so on and so forth. So it just so happens the way that the polling that particular day showed was Donald Trump winning Nevada, Donald Trump winning Arizona, Donald Trump winning Georgia, Donald Trump winning Iowa, Donald Trump winning Ohio, Donald Trump winning North Carolina, Donald Trump winning Florida. However, the polling also showed Donald Trump not winning Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan. So we said, let's just run the scenario at 270towin.com. Under that scenario, it was 270 Joe Biden to 268. Now that is, if Joe Biden were to win the singular electoral vote in the state of Nebraska. You say, what are you talking about? So every state decides how they send their electoral votes. You can do it however you want. Nebraska has decided, and Maine, to do it by congressional district. So the super liberal congressional district in Omaha, Nebraska, in a deep red state, gets their own electoral vote. So imagine if downtown Salt Lake City got their own electoral vote, right? It would be, you would be furious, right? That the whole state of Utah, you're sending one of your votes for president just because of the more liberal part of your state. Wow. So we ran the scenario. We said, well, Joe Biden would win unless Nebraska were to fix their electoral system and go to winner take all. And it was really right place, right time. So I was so mad, I was so angry. I said, why is Nebraska, a deep red state, not doing this? Why did Ronna, when she ran the RNC, by the way, Mitt Romney's niece, when running the RNC, why did she not do something about this? And so I said, send out a tweet. And sometimes it's just, you hit magic. We sent out the tweet, it went totally viral. 5 hours later, the governor of Nebraska, who is great credit, Governor Pillen, came out and said, I now support winner take all. I want to have the entire state go be winner take all. And the significance of that is getting Trump an extra electoral vote. And the news stories were how Nebraska could change its laws to deprive Joe Biden of the electoral vote that he needs most. And I was like, okay, now we really got to lean in on this. So for those that watch the show, we made it the Nebraska show for like 10 days, right? I went out there, we did a rally, we got the attention, and I want to just say, I don't want to share anything of private conversations. The governor has committed to calling a special session just for this purpose.
Wow.
And secondly, we are getting very good vibes. Let me just be very cryptic. Good vibes, good momentum from the legislature. We have full confidence the governor of Nebraska will deliver on this before Election Day. The significance, now Nevada, the math matters. Now Nevada's a battleground state. You might say, what do you mean? Otherwise, the math for Nevada otherwise wouldn't work. It just wasn't enough electoral votes to get you over that 270 threshold. Again, it's an interesting system. Praise God for our founding fathers that we have this system. So you have to run this sort of national campaign where you don't just run to the coasts, right, and run up the score in the cities. So if I was a betting man, let me put it differently, because there's, betting is not exactly well looked upon around here. If I was in Vegas, that's the line I would use. Yeah, it's in Utah. I'm confident that Nebraska is going to go winner take all, and the governor is going to deliver a heroic victory for the people of this country. I'm confident.
State delegate. I have a two-part question. How do you feel about attorney generals running when they're not licensed to practice law in Utah? And on that, who do you support?
Oh boy. Well, I have not endorsed in any other race. I've got my own that I'm contending with, but I've done a number of joint town halls. I know Frank Mylar, he may even be here. And I've really enjoyed, I love his experience and what he's done. I think you're making reference to Trent Christensen, who is not yet there. My understanding is he's supposed to be taking that here before the primary, but I don't know. I think there are a couple of great candidates and those that would do well in that office. It's an important office, that's for sure, because we have to have an attorney general that's going to be able to assert themselves and ensure that we're not just run roughshod over with respect to Governor Cox and some of the things that they're doing. So, very important.
Hi guys, my name is Brian Wallenberg. I got kind of a two-part question about what's going on in the House with these insane spending bills. Kevin McCarthy was ousted from his position for siding with the Democrats. Now Mike Johnson is doing it at least a few times. I don't know if he's afraid to shut the government down during an election year, or what's your opinion on that? Should they just do it anyway, and how do you feel about what's going on?
Yeah, so I'm not supportive of shutting the government down now. That's why I got so angry in November when they refused to shut down the government in the fall. For those that watched the show, we made a huge deal of this, which is there is a moment where you have to be willing to go nuclear. When you're 8 months out from an election, they use that as an excuse. And I got livid because they were telling us, and they lied to you repeatedly. They lied to you repeatedly. They said, oh, no, we just need another continuing resolution, and we need time till January, and in January we'll have the big spending fight. Well, January comes, they say, oh, we need till March, and in March we'll have the big spending fight. And then they force feed you an awful bill with no cuts because it's an election year. And rinse and repeat. So that's why I got so upset. As far as shutting down the government is not even in the calculus right now because of those bad spending bills. What Speaker Johnson should have done is very simple. And I was texting with him this morning, and I was very upset with him. And I'm the same person in private and public. I get really fired up. I have this
You too, huh?
No, I have this Scots-Irish rage that I just can't control. I get so, you know what I'm talking about? Like I get so fired up. And what here's what Speaker Johnson should have done, then I'll tell you kind of where we were wrong. What he should have done is he should have attached border security to the Ukraine bill, put them as one bill, and used the thing the regime wanted the most with the thing that the country needed the most, right? And that would have been a rational perspective. Here's where we were wrong, is that we thought that Joe Biden and Chuck Schumer wanted Ukraine money more than anything. What we didn't realize is that Joe Biden, Chuck Schumer, and Mike Johnson wanted Ukraine money more than anything. That's where I messed up, because I thought he was actually one of us. And okay, I live to be disappointed by these people, right? And he was the one that refused to take a very agreeable border security bill with 3 concessions. Very simple. You cannot just declare asylum just because you say the words asylum, right? We're going to increase the amount of deportations, right, that are happening on the border, and no DNA testing and no background testing. Period, you're in violation of federal law. Those 3 things, you could get blue dog Democrats, you could break the Senate on that, okay? Super simple. We're not talking about like the more dramatic stuff that Trump is gonna do when he's president. And he should have just said, okay, you guys want Ukraine, we want the border, or else what are you gonna do about it, right? And here's the thing. Not only did they want Ukraine, and I'm sorry to take too much time on this, Trent, but like they needed Ukraine, and this is what drove me nuts about this, is that Ukraine is about to collapse, and it was gonna be Afghanistan 2.0. And Joe Biden needed to get more cluster bombs and artillery munitions to stave off a political crisis before November.
The election. Yeah.
And so he was looking at this through political lens because Russia is going for the kill shot. Now this new money will probably make sure that doesn't happen. Now to understand how tragic that is, our government prevented a peace deal that would have kept almost all of Ukraine intact a week into the war that would have saved 250,000 people from dying. But your war machine wanted profit so badly that they obliterated that peace deal and they said, no, we're not going to have that. So that's what's happening there. It's amazing. It's a tragedy for humanity. Christ our Lord said, blessed are the peacemakers. And right now our lawmakers are warmongers. And I think it's a tragedy. And I think shame on all of them for the blood that is being spilled for no good reason.
I'll just add to that quickly. I would have been a quick no vote, obviously, on this
That's a
piece of
huge
legislation.
deal, everybody. That's a big deal. You should applaud that. That's huge. You know how rare that is to find someone that will say that?
I have said it from the very beginning in launching this campaign. I think it's obscene that the American taxpayer is still shouldering effectively the security apparatus across Europe 80 years post-World War II.
Thank you.
And what Trump did so well, Trump ended up having these NATO partners pay their fair share. They're supposed to be paying 2% of their GDP towards its protection. So that's a problem. It'll be fixed when President Trump comes back to office. But that's what's so sad. I mean, when Senator Tuberville was out here, he said, you know, there was this opportunity.
I know.
Right? And it could have been prevented. And yet we've got hundreds of thousands of people that are now dead as a result. President Trump will come back in. We'll find resolution to this right away, I believe.
That's right.
And as to shutting down the government, this is why part of my contract with Utah spells out no on omnibus spending bills, because we have to. We have to know what time it is. And I get upset, and I look at my children, and this is one of the biggest reasons why I'm in this race, is because we were at 32 trillion when I announced my candidacy. We're at 35 roughly now, in less than a year. And I talked with Mike Lee about this the other day. We had a joint town hall, and he said, you know, the estimates are that we are going to hit $50 trillion by 2030. So that's within the term of this Senate seat that everybody here is deciding on. Once we hit 50 trillion, it's hyperinflation.
Yeah, we're done.
Asset bases are going to be destroyed, and those people that live on a fixed income in particular are going to have a very, very tough time.
Yeah.
So we can't wait around. We can't keep doing this, and that's why I've said, nope, I'm going to have the courage just to say, forget it. We've got to get back to process, and that one thing will go ahead and get us back to a balanced budget, which we haven't had since 2001.
Praise God. Great.
My name is Daniel Casperson. I recently moved here from Seattle. And my question for both of you, Mayor Staggs and Charlie, is I don't want to engage in hypotheticals here, but Vivek Ramaswamy articulated very eloquently throughout his campaign and continues to do about kind of what you spoke to, which is we are not exactly the representative republic that we should be. And part of that is because the unelected eternal bureaucrats, the administrative state, if you will, in Washington, D.C., as wonderful and vital as it is to get gas prices down, obviously ripple effects across the economy, to be able to get inflation down, cut taxes. What are we going to actually do? Do you feel like we're actually going to be able to address these out of control runaway bureaucracies this time around?
Yes, this is what I call the establishment. When I say I'm fighting the establishment, let me be clear. It is the uniparty bureaucrats and the elected officials that don't care about this country. They have their own agenda they want to advance. And you know what? That's why, I mean, Vivek Ramaswamy, who endorsed my candidacy, by the way, last Wednesday. I don't know if you know that. He has his American Truth Pledge, and that's what he calls for. That's what I've called for in my contract with Utah, is term limits on bureaucrats in particular. And Kash Patel has also called that out in his book, Government Gangsters. He identifies a way in which we can actually make them accountable to those they're supposed to be serving, those that we elect. I mean, imagine that.
Thank you.
Chris Edwards, state delegate. Trent, thank you for everything that you're doing.
Thank you, Chris.
Definitely have my vote as a state delegate.
Thank you.
This question is kind of for Charlie. Yes, we are behind Trent Staggs, but we also have a trader up north, up in Ogden, in our area, with Congressman Blake Moore. This is where I'm asking for help for you to bring a little more light to what we have up north, because now that he's in leadership role, thanks to Johnson, it seems like he is doing his...
I don't even know who he is. What is the tilt? And that shows, I mean, I should know. But what is the tilt of the district?
Right now, he is voted with Democrats.
No. The composition of the district. I asked for a reason. R plus what?
R plus.
R plus what? R20, then you got a primary. You have to get a good primary challenger and get him out of office, and you can win. And I'll be happy to help with that. But the point is this: is that if he's as bad as you say he is, which again, he's probably terrible. I trust you guys, right? But why did I ask about the composition of the district? Because I'm not trying to obliterate in the terrain. I'm not trying to obliterate in the terrain where we need to win majorities unnecessarily. If you would have told me it was an R+1, I would have said, look, man, I'm all for like taking out leadership and all that, but it's hard to win in an R+1 district. If you're in an R+20 district and you are not like 100% conservative on everything, which you're telling me he's not, then the primary is the general. The general is not that important, and you need to have a super conservative in that district, right? So you have my sympathy in that. So, but I want to be clear though, like Burgess Owens is in a tough seat, if I'm not mistaken, right? It's always tight. I cut people in tight seats more slack because you do have to vote your district. We do want to have majorities, not be in minorities, right? We want to govern this country. You don't want to be in the minority. But the problem is that people in the most comfortable districts vote as if they're in the swing districts. That we have people in the reddest states like Utah, Mitt Romney, that do not vote in alignment with their voters. Does that make sense? So that's why I asked that, because I don't want to unnecessarily create problems for the party where we shouldn't. But I know nothing about this individual, but anybody who funds the Ukraine stuff, who is for the open border and a bunch of show votes has got to go. So primary and then find a better person. Thank you.
Yes, I have a question for Trent. I'll preface this. I think this room is full of people who value personal responsibility and accountability. I have in my hands a bankruptcy petition filed in 2010 by a Trent Philip Staggs. My first question is that you? And two, if you value personal responsibility and integrity and accountability, how can you file for bankruptcy and foist your debts upon the public?
We'll move on to the next
I
question.
can defend you. I mean, I'll defend you. First of all, do you like Donald Trump or not? Do you? Okay, well, Donald Trump used the bankruptcy laws for his own good and purpose, so get out of line, man. It's ridiculous. So no, hold on. First of all, with the year that's a reprehensible question. I'm going to defend Trent here. 2010, people were struggling to make ends meet after 2008, and if you had to declare bankruptcy to make sure your kids were fed and your mortgage was paid, you shouldn't go attack them, okay? Oh, foist your debts on the public? Some people have no choice but to declare bankruptcy and call tomorrow a better day. You know what? America has the best bankruptcy laws in the world because we allow you a second chance. So get out of line. I hate that question. Get out of line. Get out of line. Get out of line.
Okay, so quick question. I know you're tired of hearing this, but people in my precinct just want to hear it.
Sure.
Mitt Romney endorsing you. Easy answer. Just a little bit of backstory, that's all.
Well, this was years ago in a mayoral race, and I love, this is again the fake news. How they like to take that, what was done years and years ago in a mayoral race, and claim that that was something that I even would, that I even endorsed him. I mean, no. We took an endorsement in a general election race. I remind people that even Mike Lee asked for his endorsement back in 22 when he was running against Evan McMullen. So, I mean, for the very reasons that I don't agree with Mitt Romney, he appeals to a whole different base of people than I do. Yes. we sought that, or we accepted that endorsement years and years ago. But the thing that I remind people and what you can pass along to your precinct is, again, I'm the only one that stood up and was willing to challenge Mitt Romney in this race, and have done it time and time again and called him out.
I just have to say, you're like the cleanest political candidate I've ever seen. Like, this is what they have on you. That, like, you were running for mayor in the state of Utah and you wanted an endorsement from a once popular U.S. senator. Yeah. Like, that's like considered political dirt. Like,
well, that.
Ooh, you got it. But shouldn't you want to have people support your candidacy? Oh no, don't support me. Don't. Like, what is that all about? I'm sorry. I just it makes me like you more. I can't. This is the dirt that they have on you.
Well, that and the fake news, yeah.
No, it's just rubbish. By the way, this is all from the war machine. This is all from the cabal trying to delegitimize a good man, trying to weaken this movement. I hope you understand and you see it for what it is. But yeah.
Trent, and that is that you exposed that we are a sanctuary state, and they came down on you hard for that, but it's proven to be right. Yes! This is my question. I have a little bit of concern because state convention is Saturday, and Charlie, this is where I kind of want your opinion. I'm a state central committee member, and we voted for paper ballots. And I know the candidates want paper ballots. A lot of the candidates want paper ballots, but we are using phones. election buddy, and I would just like your opinion on that.
So yeah, again, I really hate that, and I'll tell you why. So we run in a lot of student government elections across the country at Turning Point. It's called Election Buddy is what you guys are using. The amount of times that those things glitch and that you're able to vote 50 or 60 or 100 times, I could tell you a whole story on this. Wow. And so I'm telling you, it's not a joke. You could have a bunch of like anti-Trent people in the bathroom with an iPad just constantly refreshing the page. If they know, again, it's hard to do that unless you know what you're doing. This is not like blockchain, okay? So I don't understand why you wouldn't do paper ballots. I'll be honest, like it doesn't make any sense to me. And I'm not fear-mongering. This happens a lot. So.
Thank you, Tina.
Yeah.
Hi, Trent and Charlie. It's good to have you guys here, and the courage that you guys are showing to do all this is awesome. Yes. I think that the majority of the people in here all had the wool pull over our eyes by Mitt Romney, did we not? Yes. Yes. So anyway, what was my question? Sorry about this. Oh. So what we have, we send a lot of good politicians to Washington, and something happens to them so often when they get back there. So I would like to hear from you, Charlie, because you deal with a lot of these Washington people. Yeah. What kind of counsel could you give Trent to keep him safe from all that, the glamour and glitz and the seduction and everything?
It's a great question. Yeah. So the number one most important thing is you have to move your entire family with you to DC, and I know that is. It's logistically tough, and I'm saying this, with his family front row. They might not want to do that. You have to do it. You have to. I will convince you. Josh Hawley will convince you too. Josh Hawley has moved his entire family, and he said, if it was not for this, you get distracted, you get compromised, you get all sorts of different things. So I'm a big believer in that. I'm not trying to cause division in the family, but you got to do it. And what happens to some of these people is that they don't have a big backbone in the first place. They just get swallowed by the regime, or they get so pressured into supporting certain policies and ideas because they're not in the cool kids club. And a lot of this is just kind of like student senate in high school that has grown into the US Senate, where it's they want to be welcome, they want to be accepted. And then finally there's just outright blackmail. I mean, there's a lot of that happens, right? The Epstein Island, that's good advice. I don't think Trent's going to be going there anytime soon. So,
can I?
Yeah.
Thank you. I've said two things to this, frankly. Number one, look at the endorsements that I've been able to receive, and I've done that because it's important to me. Charlie indicated a lot of national conservative voices are all rallying around me. That's important. That's going to hold me true. You're going to hold me accountable, right? All of us as voters here in the state of Utah, but you got to have a team back there too that's got your back. And so that's why I've sought the endorsements of people like Senator Tuberville and Carrie Lake and Congressman Gates and many others that I can go to and say, hey, look, I've made these commitments just like you did. I'm part of this Freedom Caucus, and you can find strength in numbers there too. I'm cognizant enough to know that it is a highly corruptible place. I mean, the influence there is highly corruptible. And so you got to have people that you're going to surround yourself with that will hold you true. I've done that, number one. Number two, this is what I love about our our caucus and convention system. I am the only one in this race that is committed to not just be a convention-only candidate, but I've also committed to do monthly town halls with delegates. And you should expect that type of preferential access as a delegate. Look, our caucus convention system, I feel, is inspired. It's representative in its very nature. You're representing for 2 years, you all have been elected too, that are delegates, to represent your respective precincts. And I am going to meet every single month with you, and you're going to hold me accountable as well.
We'll take a couple more. This is going well. Okay.
As a Riverton resident and part of the 18 to 34 cohort, well, you're probably aware of the recent news that Utah is the third most expensive state in the nation for housing prices. I just want, my question for you is there hope for people like me to own a home in Utah?
There is two quick things on that. Number one, Senator Mike Lee has what he's called the Houses Act. How many have heard of the Houses Act? Most people don't realize, and Senator Tuberville didn't quite understand the fact that 2/3 of our state is owned or controlled by the federal government. And Mike Lee's bill says, look, if we just took 1% of the BLM property that's closest to cities where it's developable, where we have access to infrastructure and to water, we could double the housing stock in the state on quarter-acre lots, 700,000+ homes. And so we've got to get our land back, number one. That's something we can do through the federal government. As a mayor now and fighting this issue with a developer-dominated state legislature that has been all too eager to pass legislation to take away our land use authority as municipalities, this is a serious issue. And I've offered up 3 things at the state level that they can do. Number one, illegal immigration has a huge impact on housing availability and therefore affordability. There's some 150,000 active cases. ICE is working now. Tina mentioned they called out Utah with a sanctuary state memo last May. That's a big issue. We got to get that right. Number 2, Wall Street landlords. The Utah Association of Realtors claims that some 16% of all housing stock here, single-family homes, are owned or controlled by corporate interest. Imagine that much more supply on the market, about 16%.
Oh, that's insane.
Yeah. So those 2 things, BlackRock, institutions like that, and local cities cannot regulate use. The state legislature, in their infinite wisdom, has passed legislation that we can't say, like a new development here is going to be restricted to, say, 10 or 20% of corporate ownership homes. Let the rest go and be on the open market.
Great answer.
My name is Logan Ott, state delegate. First off, Charlie Kirk, I love all your content, especially when you go to the college campuses.
Thank you. You got a little taste of it tonight. So.
Just a quick question. So Biden just signed a bill extending the FISA parameters on more warrantless spying against Americans and foreigners. I see this as being extremely dangerous towards Americans for breach of privacy. I have a question. What would you do about that bill getting extended?
Is that to me or?
That's to you. Yeah.
That's what would I do with respect?
The FISA.
The FISA 702. Yeah. Well, look, I would not have voted for it. First of all.
That's great.
I think this is insane. You mentioned, I think there's some 200,000 examples of warrantless spying on Americans.
Yeah, 278,000 in just one calendar year. So about 600 a day of them illegally going into your text messages. By the way, that's their own report, so it's probably even worse than that.
Yeah. Well, it's a violation of the Fourth Amendment. Yep. So we have to get people in office that are going to actually challenge this. It infuriates me. I've told this to delegates and some others. It infuriates me when Senator Mike Lee is in front of an oversight committee, has Christopher Wray of the FBI in front of him, and asks him point blank, what is your process? How do we know that these 278,000 just in the last calendar year have not had their Fourth Amendment protections violated? He just sat there with a smirk on his face. I mean, that's insane. We got to hold, those people have to be accountable to elected officials. And we have to be able to get them out of the positions they're in.
That, yeah.
I would like to, I love what Vivek Ramaswamy said with respect to the FBI. Half the agents, get rid of them, don't even miss them. The other half can be folded into existing agencies because it's duplicative in its very nature.
That's right. Love that.
I'm Kim Steenblank, I'm a state delegate. My question to you is, other than getting Trump in office, which I know we need to do, what can you do, or what can you do to close the border? And illegal immigration is out of control. So what can we do to close the border, get the illegal immigrants out from being bused to each of our states? They're getting bused to Utah, every state that's a Republican state, they're getting bused to.
Yeah. Well, I've seen it.
What can we do?
I've actually seen it in my own city. I had my police chief tell me that a bus just landed at our main park and not too long ago. And so this is a big problem. I've said border, budget, and the regulatory state are the top 3 issues I like to get in there and resolve. The REINS Act is going to do a big deal to cut all the regulatory state down, which we could talk about. But with respect to the border, look, it's border wall. We've got to have it. Why we're sending $130 billion now, another $60 billion to Ukraine, is insane. Don't tell me about sending another dollar over there until we've got our own border secure. You've got $6 billion accounting errors. I mean, that would have closed the wall right there. Unfortunately, we got people like Mitt Romney that didn't support President Trump when he had the opportunity to close that gap. And he also supported, I think, one of 5 Republicans that nominated Mayorkas, which is a complete disaster. And that guy ought to have been impeached a long, long time ago. So, border wall, remain in Mexico, all the great policies that worked under President Trump. I mean, Joe Biden, just that last bill where he said he needed the $95 billion bill to do his job. No, he and Mayorkas were bragging about the fact, days after assuming office, that they undid so much of what was working under President Trump that the newscast that was interviewing them wouldn't have time to sit down and talk about it all. I mean, it's insane. There are so many things, but the Remain in Mexico is just one. We've got to have E-Verify. Not enough people are talking about this. And unfortunately, in this state, we've gutted E-Verify. We had a House Bill 252 just the other year, which Speaker Wilson oversaw, and it took the threshold from 15 employees to where you'd had to use it up to 150, and now allows illegal immigrants to use the Social Security numbers of the kids that may have been born here. That's a problem. We got to stop rewarding illegality and reward legality.
I want to say a couple things in closing. So just one thought in closing I want to answer just in general. People ask, what can I do? What can we do? In fact, people say, Charlie, I feel like I've done everything. I watch Fox News, I bought the pillow, I've done everything that's been asked of me. By the way, promo code Kirk at mypillow.com, just so we're clear, okay? The slippers are amazing, the Giza Dream Sheets. Right? You got to use the right promo code. Look, you guys are in a unique spot. You have an open Senate seat. Senators have a lot of power. They have a lot of power. And every single one of these that we can start to notch, we get closer and closer to making the Senate more of a reflection of the will of the Republican Party and a will of the American people. This is massive. And what a tragedy it would be if we just fail this opportunity and you just get a milquetoast, warmongering, Ukraine-supporting, flag-waving typical thing, because it would, I'm not saying any names, you guys can do that yourself. I'm saying who won't be that, you know who won't be that, that's Trent. And Trent will fight for you. Trent has made the right commitments. Trent has been in the trenches. And I know how much that they want to have this seat just be comfortable, business as usual. No, we don't want business as usual. They have been insulting us for too long. The country's going wildly off track. And I want to say, some people say, but Charlie, what difference does it make? Mike Lee is making a difference, and he needs reinforcements. He needs someone to work alongside of him. He is fighting his tail off. That guy loves this country. He loves the Constitution. And what an opportunity, and I'm honored to be here tonight to endorse, and not just endorse, but to help support Trent. And I want you guys to do everything you can to make sure he can win at convention and independent. Thank you, guys. Thanks, man.